Hello everyone, welcome back. This is another episode of our WoW lore series on this channel. So I'm reading through all of the in-game lore that had been chronicled by a user on Reddit. And I believe I'm unable to share links in my description still, but if you're wondering, the document is the one that WoW Kirin Tor shared on his channel. I believe he's actually also doing a reading, so if you'd like, he's definitely shared it in his links there, but that's not important. I would credit the person that did this, I just can't share the link. So anyways, it is quite an old post on Reddit, but now we are going to continue on reading, and this one is the Seven Kingdoms. And this is from Scholomance as well as Strom. Strom continued to act as the central hub of Arathor, but as with Dalaran, many new city-states arose across the continent of Lordaeron. Gilneas, Alterac, and Kul Tiras were the first city-states to arise, and although they had their own customs and commercial workings, they all held to the unifying authority of Strom. Under the vigilant watch of the Order of Tirisfal, Dalaran became the chief center of learning for magicians throughout the land. Magocrats who ruled Dalaran founded the Kirin Tor, a specialized sect that was charged with cataloging and researching every spell, artifact, and magic item known to mankind at the time. Gilneas and Alterac became strong supporters of Strom and developed mighty armies that explored the mountainous southern lands of Khaz Modan. It was during this period that humans first met the ancient race of dwarves and traveled to their cavernous subterranean city of Ironforge. The humans and dwarves shared many secrets of metalsmithing and engineering and discovered a common love for battle and storytelling. The city-state of Kul Tiras, founded upon a large island south of Lordaeron, developed a prosperous economy based on fishing and shipping. Over time, Kul Tiras built up a mighty fleet of merchant vessels that sailed throughout the known lands in search of exotic goods to trade and sell. Yet even as the economy of Arathor flourished, its strongest elements began to disintegrate. In time, the lords of Strom sought to move their estates to the lush northlands of Lordaeron and leave the arid lands of the south. The heirs of King Thoradin, the last descendants of the Arathi bloodline, argued that Strom should not be abandoned and thus incurred the displeasure of greater citizenry who were likewise eager to leave. The lords of Strom, seeking to find purity and enlightenment in the untamed north, decided to leave their ancient city behind. Far to the north of Dalaran, the lords of Strom built a new city-state which they named Lordaeron. The entire continent would take its name from this city-state. Lordaeron became a mecca for religious travelers and all those who sought inner peace and security. The descendants of the Arathi, left within the crumbling walls of ancient Strom, decided to travel south past the rocky mountains of Khaz Modan. Their journey finally ended after many long seasons, and they settled in the northern region of the continent they would name Azeroth. In a fertile valley, they founded the kingdom of Stormwind, which quickly became a self-sufficient power in its own right. The few warriors still left in Strom decided to remain and guard the ancient walls of their city. Strom was no longer the center of the empire, but it developed into the new nation known as Stromgarde. Though each of the city-states became prosperous in their own right, the empire of Arathor had effectively disintegrated. As each nation developed its own customs and beliefs, they became increasingly segregated from one another. King Thoradin's vision of a unified humanity had faded at last. Aegwynn and the Dragon Hunt, Westfall, Scarlet Monastery, Tirisfal Glades. As the politics and rivalries of the seven human nations waxed and waned, the line of guardians kept its constant vigil against chaos. There were many guardians over the years, but only one ever held the magical powers of Tirisfal at any given time. One of the last guardians of the age distinguished herself as a mighty warrior against the shadow. Aegwyn, a fiery human girl, won the approbation of the Order and was given the mantle of guardianship. Aegwyn vigorously worked to hunt down and eradicate demons wherever she found them, but she often questioned the authority of the male-dominated Council of Tirisfal. She believed that the ancient elves and elderly men who presided over the council were too rigid in their thinking, not far-sighted enough to put a decisive end to the conflict against chaos. Impatient with lengthy discussion and debate, she yearned to prove herself worthy of her peers and superiors. As a result, frequently chose valor over wisdom in crucial situations. As her mastery over the cosmic powers of Tirisfal grew, Aegwyn became aware of a number of powerful demons that stalked the icy northern continent of Northrend. Traveling to the distant north, Aegwyn tracked the demons into the mountains. There, she found that the demons were hunting one of the last surviving dragonflights and draining the ancient creatures of their innate magic. The mighty dragons who had fled from the ever-advancing march of mortal societies found themselves too evenly matched against the dark magics of the Legion. Aegwyn confronted the demons and with help from the noble dragons, eradicated them. Yet, as the last demon was banished from the mortal world, a great storm erupted throughout the north. An enormous dark visage appeared in the sky above Northrend. Sargeras, the Demon King and Lord of the Burning Legion, appeared before Aegwyn and bristled with hellish energy. He informed the young guardian that the time of Tirisfal was about to come to an end, and that the world would soon bow before the onslaught of the Legion. The proud Aegwyn, believing herself to be a match for the menacing god, unleashed her powers against Sargeras' avatar. With disconcerting ease, Aegwyn battered the demon lord with her powers and succeeded in killing his physical shell. Fearing that Sargeras' spirit would linger on, Aegwyn locked the ruined husk of his body within one of the ancient halls of Kalimdor that had been blasted to the bottom of the sea when the Well of Eternity had collapsed. Aegwyn would never know that she had done exactly as Sargeras had planned. She had inadvertently sealed the fate of the mortal world, for Sargeras, at the time of his corporeal death, had transferred his spirit into Aegwyn's weakened body. Unbeknownst to the young guardian, Sargeras would remain cloaked within the darkest recesses of her soul for many long years. War of the Three Hammers, Redridge Mountain, Stormwind City, Iron Forge, the Barrens, Mulgore, Scarlet Monastery, the Hinterlands, Blackrock Depths. The dwarves of Ironforge Mountain lived in peace for many long centuries. However, their society grew too large within the confines of their mountain cities. Though the mighty High King, Modimus Anvilmar, ruled over all dwarves with justice and wisdom, three powerful factions had arisen amongst the dwarven society. The Bronzebeard clan, ruled by Thane Maduran Bronzebeard, held close ties to the High King and stood as traditional defenders of Ironforge Mountain. The Wildhammer clan, ruled by Thane Kadros Warhammer, inhabited the foothills and crags around the base of the mountain and sought to gain more control within the city. The third faction, the Dark Iron clan, was ruled by the sorcerer Thane Thorison. Dark Irons hid within the deepest shadows under the mountain and plotted against both their Bronzebeard and Wildhammer cousins. For a time, the three factions kept a tenuous peace, but tensions erupted when High King Anvilmar passed away from old age. The three ruling clans went to war for control of Ironforge itself. The dwarf civil war raged under the earth for many years. Eventually, the Bronzebeards, who had the largest standing army, banished the Dark Irons and Wildhammers from under the mountain. Cardrus and his Wildhammer warriors traveled north through the barrier gates of Dun Algaz, and they founded their own kingdom within the distant peak of Grim Batol. There, the Wildhammers thrived and rebuilt their stores of treasure. Thorsan and his Dark Irons did not fare as well. Humiliated and enraged by their defeat, they vowed revenge against Ironforge. Leading his people far to the south, Thorsan founded a city which he named after himself. Within the beautiful Red Ridge Mountains, prosperity and the passing of years did little to ease the Dark Irons' rancor towards their cousins. Thorsan and his sorceress wife, Modgood, launched a two-pronged assault against both Ironforge and Grim Batol. The Dark Irons were intent on claiming all of Khaz Modan for their own. The Dark Iron armies smashed against their cousin strongholds and very nearly took both kingdoms. However, Madoran Bronzebeard ultimately led his clan to a decisive victory over Thorsan's sorceress army. Thorsan and his servants fled back to the safety of their city, unaware of the events transpiring at Grim Batol, where Modgood's army would fare no better against Ketros and his Wildhammer warriors. As she confronted the enemy warriors, Modgood used her powers to strike fear into their hearts. Shadows moved at her command, and dark things crawled up from the depths of the earth to stalk the Wildhammers in their own halls. Eventually, Modgood broke through the gates and laid siege to the fortress itself. The Wildhammers fought desperately, Cardros himself wading through the roiling masses to slay the sorceress queen. With their queen lost, the Dark Irons fled before the fury of the Wildhammers. They raced south towards their king's stronghold, only to meet the armies of Ironforge, which had come to aid Grim Batol. Crushed between two armies, the remaining Dark Iron forces were utterly destroyed. The combined armies of Ironforge and Grim Batol then turned south, intent on destroying Thorsan and his Dark Irons once and for all. They had not gone far when Thorsan's fury resulted in a spell of cataclysmic proportions. Seeking to summon a supernatural minion that would ensure his victory, Thorsan called upon the ancient powers sleeping beneath the world. To his shock, and ultimately his doom, the creature that emerged was much more terrible than any nightmare he could have imagined. Ragnaros the Fire Lord, immortal lord of all fire elementals, had been banished by the Titans when the world was young. Now, freed by Thorsan's call, Ragnaros erupted into being once again. Ragnaros' apocalyptic rebirth into Azeroth shattered Red Ridge Mountains and created a raging volcano at the center of the devastation. The volcano, known as Blackrock Mountain, was bordered by the Searing Gorge to the north and the Burning Steeps to the south. Though Thorsan was killed by the forces he had unleashed, his surviving brethren were ultimately enslaved by Ragnaros and his elementals. They remain within the depths of Blackrock to this day. Witnessing the horrific devastation of fires spreading across the southern mountains, King Madaran and King Kadros halted their armies and hastily turned back towards their kingdoms, unwilling to face the awesome wrath. The Bronzebeards returned to Ironforge and rebuilt their glorious city. The Wildhammers also returned home to Grim Batol. However, the death of Modgood had left an evil stain on the mountain fortress, and the Wildhammers found it uninhabitable. They were bitter in their hearts over the loss of their beloved home. King Bronzebeard offered the Wildhammers a place to live within the borders of Ironforge, but the Wildhammers steadfastly refused. Cardros took his people north in the lands of Lordaeron. Settling within the lush forests of the hinterlands, the Wildhammers crafted the city of Arid Peak, where the Wildhammers grew closer to nature and even bonded with the mighty griffins of the area. Seeking to retain relations and trade with their cousins, the dwarves of Ironforge constructed two massive arches, the Thandal Span, to bridge the gap between Khaz Modan and Lordaeron. Bolstered by mutual trade, the two kingdoms prospered. After the deaths of Madaran and Cardros, their sons jointly commissioned two great statues in honor of their fathers. The two statues would stand over the pass into the Southlands, which had become volcanic in the wake of Ragnaros' scorching presence. They served as both a warning to all who would attack the Dwarven kingdoms and as a reminder of what price the Dark Irons paid for their crimes. Two kingdoms retained close ties for some years, but the Wildhammers were much changed by the horrors they witnessed at Grim Batol. They took to living above ground on the slopes of Airy Peak instead of carving a vast kingdom within the mountain. The ideological differences between the two remaining dwarven clans eventually led to their parting of ways. The Last Guardian, Westfall, Khaz Modan. The Guardian Aequin grew powerful over the years and used the Tirisfal energies to greatly extend her life. Foolishly believing that she had defeated Sargeras for good, she continued to safeguard the world from the Demon King's minions for nearly 900 years. However, the Council of Tirisfal finally decreed that her stewardship had come to an end, to return to Dalaran so they could choose a new successor for the Guardian power. Yet Aequin, ever distrustful of the council, decided to choose a successor on her own. The proud Aequin planned to give birth to a son whom she would divest her power to. She had no intention of allowing the Order of Tirisfal to manipulate her successor as they tried to manipulate her. Traveling to the southern nation of Azeroth, Aequin found the perfect man to father her son, a skilled human magician known as Gilneas and Alterac. Aran was the conjurer and advisor for Azeroth's king. Aequin seduced the magician and conceived a son by him. Gilneas' natural affinity for magic would run deep within the unborn child, and define the tragic steps the child would later take. The power of Tirisfal was also implanted in the child, yet it wasn't to awaken until he reached physical maturity. Time passed, and Aequin gave birth to her son in a secluded grove, naming the boy Medivh, which means keeper of secrets in the High Elven tongue. Aequin believed that the boy would mature to become the next guardian. Unfortunately, the malignant spirit of Sargeras, which had been hiding inside her, had possessed the defenseless child while it was still in her womb. Aequin had no idea that the world's newest guardian was already possessed by its greatest nemesis. Certain that her baby was healthy and sound, Aequin delivered young Medivh to the court of Azeroth and left him there to be raised by his mortal father and his people. She then wandered into the wilderness and prepared to pass into whatever afterlife awaited her. Medivh grew to become a strong boy and had no idea the potential power of his Tirisfalian birthright. Sargeras bided his time until the youth's power manifested itself. By the time Medivh had reached his teenage years, he had become very popular in Azeroth for his magical prowess and often went off on adventures with his two friends, Lane, the Prince of Azeroth, and Anduin Lothar, one of the last descendants of the Arathi bloodline. The three boys constantly caused mischief around the kingdom, but they were already well liked by the general citizenry. When Medivh reached the age of 14, the cosmic power inside him awakened and clashed with the pervasive spirit of Sargeras that lurked within his soul. Medivh fell into a catatonic state which lasted for many years. When he awakened from his coma, he found that he had grown to adulthood, and his friends Lane and Anduin had become the regents of Azeroth. Though he wished to use his incredible newfound powers to protect the land he called home, the dark spirit of Sargeras twisted his thoughts and emotions towards an insidious end. Sargeras reveled within the darkening heart of Medivh, for he knew that his plans for a second invasion of the world were nearing completion, and that the world's last guardian would bring them all to fruition. Thank you for being here. That concludes Chapter 2, and next we will move on to Chapter 3, The Tomb of Draenor. We have quite a handful of stories, so please subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I've already made some Skyrim content on here, and I will continue to